We're going to start. Okay, at this time I call regular meeting to order. Ms. Hernandez, can you please lead us in the pledge?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Madam President, Ms. Patricia Jimenez.
Present.
Governing Board Clerk, Ms. Maria Guzman.
Present.
Governing Board Member, Ms. Maria Hernandez.
Present.
Governing Board Member, Mr. Rudy Santa Cruz.
Present.
Governing Board Member, Mr. Harry Garwa.
Present.
Thank you. Next, do I have a motion to approve the April 14 regular governing board meeting agenda? Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, call for the vote.
Governing Board,
Motion carries. Next, approval of March 24th, 2022 regular governing board meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any changes, discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. Motion carries. Next, we have governing board reports. First is Mr. Santa Cruz.
I have no board reports today.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Garwell.
Yes, Madam President, just a couple of items here. First thing is just to report out that we attended the NSBA conference, annual conference in San Diego, and I thought it was very beneficial. There were several different breakout sessions that were helpful for us, you know, from the perspective of some of the best practices that are out around the country. One in particular that I enjoyed, I went to one that was talking about strategic planning and developing a dashboard. And Dr. Ventura and I had a chance to chat a little bit about that. And I think there was some really good ideas that came out of it that we'll talk about at our board retreat that will be coming up so that we can have a good, efficient, and effective dashboard that we could look at. And it could also be easier for our general public, you know, to know what's going on as well. The other thing I wanted to share today is that there was a bill that came out of committee today that's going to do two things. One of them is going to limit the amount of materials in the classroom again, you know, as far as sexual orientation and all those things, which I still believe that, you know, local control, we ought to be the ones developing the curriculum that would make it out of there. And then another bill that came, well, actually, there's a lawsuit that was launched in opposition of the funding. So what that means is that there's a lawsuit trying to oppose the suit that came forward because of lack of funding. So the other side has now launched a lawsuit as well, saying that they want to make sure that, you know, it doesn't change, that we keep the funding at the same level, which has been inadequate since 1989, if I remember, you know, that we've been underfunded. And then finally, I just wanted to share with everybody that, you know, this is a special time of the year. And I hope everybody has a great holiday, you know, over this Holy Week, you know, and a wonderful Easter. And just enjoy yourselves and don't eat too many huevitos, right? Because that's what happens with our kids. We go out, we do the Easter egg hunt. And just don't leave them out too long either, okay? And Ms. Peraza, you can talk about that later as well. That's the end of my report, Madam President.
Thank you. Next is Ms. Hernandez.
Yes, I just have a comment, just to also say hi to everyone that's out there, and also got to go to the NSBA conference in San Diego, which was very intense. It was my first major event to get out to and see. It was a lot to learn, a lot to see, and a lot to meet. So it was quite real time draining for every bit of your time and attention. So it was quite a lot to learn from. Also want to just tell everybody have a happy Easter and also enjoy your day off tomorrow and be ready to be back on Monday.
Thank you. Next is myself. I'm gonna kind of echo what my colleague said about, I also attended the National School Board Association. I'm gonna kind of brag. It's really nice to go to these sessions and hear a strategic plan, and it's really nice to know that we're doing it. And not many still districts are not. And you get to meet other colleagues from other states, and you're like, oh wow, we're ahead of the game. And learning also about our new database, how we're keeping track of our students' data, and like I mentioned before, we want to see improvement, and we want to see that our kids are growing, and we are. So I'm very pleased with that. I also want to let you know that I'm your Facebook fan on the Isaac School District. I send Ventura text and I go, oh, look at this, my story Monday. So it's really nice to read and see what's going on the sites, and I even get to comment if I know certain teachers. So our marketing, I really like everything that you guys are doing and putting it out there. Our Isaac Pride as well. Spotlight on the kids. And this is something that I want to see. I went to a board meeting, which is different to go to another board meeting and sit there and like, oh, wow. And you kind of see, I'm not going to be mean, but I'm like, our board meeting is kind of better, nice and short, not that long. But I'm going to give them something. They had a full crowd of parents. And I want to get this back. I want to have spotlights. I want to have this. I want to have a full crowd again with our parents, promoting our students, promoting our teachers, giving them awards. And I mentioned that to Dr. Ventura. So now that things are kind of getting better, I want to start doing that to recognize them, because this is why we're here, to recognize our students, our teachers, our staff. So I want to also to start going to the schools. So hopefully, we could talk about it. I'm looking forward to our board retreat. Another thing that we talked about is, how's my minutes? Self-evaluation as a board. And I think not individual, as a board. What are we doing as a board? We also should be aligning ourselves with the strategic plan as well. So that's something that we're going to be talking about in our board retreat. So I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully all of our colleagues are going to be here, because this is for us. And also, happy Easter, be safe. And I was going to say something, but I'm not anymore because it's funny. I was going to say, don't eat too many huevitos, because that's going to happen. So that's about it. Thank you. Okay, next is Ms. Guzman. Are you there?
I just want to thank everyone for being there, and I have no report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And next is superintendent update.
Madam President, members of the board and Isaac community, we have a few things I would like to highlight for today, and they're all very exciting. One is the Isaac School District was selected to receive the Governor's Volunteer Service Award for the work that we did during the pandemic. As you know, we are a community of essential workers, and throughout the district, we had many departments and individuals going above and beyond to serve the community during this time of crisis. So on May 2nd, we will be receiving an award from the Governor's Office for Volunteer Service Award. Secondly, we have, fresh off the press, this from this morning, Isaac Middle School has received the 2022 Support Music Merit Award from the National Association of Music Merits Foundation. We are one of 2 schools in Arizona that received this award, and we are one of 80 that received this award throughout the nation. And I want to thank Mr. Salvador Rodriguez for his hard work and dedication to our students. I was sharing with some administrators that I know in Isaac, our music program at the middle school level begins at 6th grade, while other districts begin in earlier grades. And just to see the amount of work and effort that our music and band instructors put into our kids for their growth is just amazing. So congratulations to our students and Mr. Rodriguez. The month of April, Appreciations Day, we would like to appreciate the continued effort and contributions of our dedicated employees, their unwavering commitment to service our community, and they do their very best for our students and our families each and every day. The following appreciation days are for the month of April. We have Assistant Principals Appreciation Day, School Librarian Appreciation Day, Paraprofessional Appreciation Day, and School Secretary Administrative Support Appreciation Day. Again, thank you to all of you for the hard work that you do for our community. Today we have a student spotlight. Actually, it's several students from Pueblo del Sol. If you could please cue up the video. Today we will see a group of students that have received a full scholarship to the Brigade Catholic High School. It's a 4-year scholarship worth a combined total of 450,000 students. So please enjoy the video while we celebrate our students' accomplishment.
At this time, we will be recognizing Pueblo del Sol 8th graders, Tiani Miranda, Carlos Garcia, Eric Gaspar, Ryan Acosta, and Jose Flores. All of them are straight A students, and because of their hard work, exemplary behavior, and school dedication, they won a full-ride scholarship not only for 1 year or 2, but for their entire high school education at Brigade Catholic High School. These scholarships are part of the Burden Family Scholarship Program.
I won a full-ride scholarship to Brigade. I've been at Pueblo my whole life. I like Pueblo so much because it's a great community.
I enjoy being here at Pueblo del Sol Elementary School because it's a very safe environment and there's like very cheerful teachers who help you throughout the whole way. If you need any help, they got you.
The reason why I love Pueblo del Sol so much is there's a lot of activities we can get in. The teachers are really nice. Everything is just good.
I like Pueblo because like everyone is so kind to each other and like teachers care about you. And
we are very proud of you, and this is an example of the academic achievement and student success that we form in the Isaac School District.
The next video we have for you is a staff member highlight, and actually we are highlighting our cafeteria staff. Each one of our schools has a cafeteria staff that goes above and beyond every day, providing nutritious meals and allowing our students to have the energy to focus on their learning. So at this point, if you could please cue up the video, and let's take a look at our food services department and celebrate for them for their continued support in providing quality meals.
Every day in the Isaac School District, we work hard to provide the best educational experience to our students. And this time, we would like to highlight all managers, assistant managers, and cafeteria staff. These ladies work very early in the morning to cook delicious and nutritional breakfast, lunch, and snacks to all Isaac students, always following the most rigorous cooking standards. They work with passion for community.
Tengo casi los 20 años trabajando aquí en el distrito. Me siento muy orgullosa de trabajar para el distrito, para esta escuela. Es lo máximo para mí, disfruto el 100%. El mayor placer creo que tenemos es trabajar para los niños, o cuando estás en la tienda, en algún lugar y miras los niños y los niños miras con agrado, te dicen, hey, es la señora que trabaja en la cafetería, es de Teacher Lunch. Que los padres, hola señora, los niños siempre están diciendo cómo los tratan, cómo están ahí. Muchas gracias por lo que hacen por ellos. Eso es el mayor placer que como trabajadora para una escuela puedes sentir.
Me encanta trabajar con los niños, es un orgullo para mí. Una vez que fui al Walmart, un niño de la escuela lo vi por los pasillos y me dijo, maestra, maestra, teacher, dice, ay, qué gusto verla, y me reconoció y ay, me sentí muy feliz porque ellos son muy agradecidos y son las satisfacciones que nos da nuestro trabajo.
Thank you for your hard work and dedication. We appreciate all of you.
that concludes my report.
Thank you. Okay, next we have new business presentation, status update, COVID-19 data review for the Isaac School District. School reopening, Dr. Mario Ventura, Superintendent, Ms. Stella Barraza, Community Health and Safety Specialist, Ms. Barraza.
Good evening, Madam President, Governing Board, Dr. Ventura, and Isaac community. We are back again to report on the community level and what that means for our school mitigations here at Isaac. So as you can see here from last month when the CDC updated our guidance, we are now looking at community level, which is updated on a weekly basis based on each county. And we look at low, medium, or high community levels. Currently, we continue to be for every week on a low community level based on Maricopa County, and that's looking at the transmission level, on positivity rate, hospitalizations, and beds used in hospitals. That's how they calculate this. As you can see here is how we are interpreting that into our schools, which is that it is okay to wear a mask or not wear a mask based on individual risk. We highly encourage individuals to wear a mask based on their individual risk. And it continues to be until April 18th to wear a mask on buses is required by federal law. And we continue to follow that mitigation strategy. One of the key mitigation strategies that remain unchanged is quarantine and isolation protocols. That means if somebody tests positive, they are to stay home for 5 days and returned upon not having any symptoms or symptoms improving and wearing a mask. We also continue to encourage staff and students to stay home when experiencing COVID-like symptoms and to test when experiencing symptoms. One of the key components that people are thinking about right now is what can they do based on this mitigation community level that is at low right now for end of school activities. And one of the main things is to continue to stay up to date with their COVID-19 vaccines. Again, we continue to encourage wearing a mask based on individual preferences and based on their individual risk. And the other component here is, as you can see, there's quite a bit that we share with our staff as they're preparing for their end of year activities. But one of the key ones is to, again, test before they attend an event or encourage individuals to do that. And then to also have a virtual option just in case somebody cannot attend the event in person. We continue to have masks available for anybody who asks for one as well. And we continue with our Pays to Be Safe, $100 gift card for all students who get their vaccines. And we continue to have those events. 2 are left in April. And our community partner, Equality Health Foundation, has confirmed for us to host with them 2 additional events in May. Again, this continue to be free of charge for both testing and for vaccines. Any questions?
Thank you. Does the board have any questions?
Madam President.
Mr. Guerra?
Ms. Barraza, I know that, the CDC is saying April 18th, but there's some conversations about, in transportation to require masks to stay in place. So I know that you're tracking that pretty significantly, right? Because one of the issues that has come up now is because of the new BA2 variants and the number of cases that are starting to develop around the country. Arizona actually has, I think, one of the highest caseloads right now, on this new variant. So I think it's important for us to continue all the efforts that we have done and continue to do as we move forward. And then also, I know that on the COVID antigen tests, those are still available for anybody that wants them. And I think that's good if we can encourage, more people to take advantage of that, just because it's helpful to try to mitigate and maybe stay ahead of the curve. Unlike some of the other communities around, they're actually taking samples out of the sewer lines to try to find out the level of variances that are coming out, which that's a good way of doing it, but I wouldn't want to do it. Let me just say that. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. I have a quick question. Are we still giving that gift card for the parents and the students that are getting vaccinated? And then also the employees, or we're done with that?
We continue to do that for the students, yes. Anybody who has not received one and has gives proofs that they have received their second vaccine, they can continue to come to our events to receive their $100 gift card for
But
students.
Not for staff anymore, correct?
And I will probably refer that over to Mr. Arenas
I know we had like a certain level percentage.
or Dr. Ventura.
So, I used to play in a band, but not like this. They'd always turn the mic off on me. So,
We know why.
yeah. President Jimenez, governing board members, Dr. Ventura. Yes, so we are still continuing. I think we have one more tier level of a payout in terms of our mitigation, our vaccination incentivized plan. Again, as you know, just as a friendly reminder, I think we have, at this point, two schools, one school, one site, that were right under the 80% threshold, but nonetheless, we're about 82% district-wide, so we felt very comfortable with that.
Thank you. And then one more question. When we, as a district, when we said, you could wear a mask or not, how was the reaction of the parents? I mean, how was the feedback? Have you had any negativity, or everything's been good with everybody? Or have you had any complaints? Why do we do this?
Yeah, Madam President, we have not received, it has not come to my attention that there has been any negative feedback. I did get feedback that for the most part, most people continue to either wear a mask just out of habit, or continue to respect any of the students who continue to wear a mask, and they continue to encourage that. At least for indoors, they continue to wear one. But again, there's been about 70-30 perhaps not wearing it.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Okay, next we have Civic Matters Arizona trip to Washington, D.C. from June 22nd to the 25th, 2022. Dr. Avila, Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning Information. Dr. Avila.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the Governing Board, Isaac community. This evening we have a presentation for you for Civics Matters Arizona. I'm excited to share with you this evening the summer experience opportunity in partnership with the Arizona Governor Doug Ducey's office and the Arizona Cardinals. The eighth grade students in the Isaac School District have an opportunity to receive an all-expense paid trip to Washington, D.C. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity organized in partnership with Close Up, which is a nonprofit organization. This trip is scheduled from June 22nd to June 25th. And here's a little video with a brief overview. One of Governor Doug Ducey's educational priorities is to inform, inspire, and empower students to become active participants in our democracy. This opportunity with the Close Up partnership, this nonprofit organization has over 50 years of experience in supporting students and getting this hands-on experience in Washington, D.C. Our students will have an opportunity to meet with elected officials, have conversations with experts, and behind-the-scenes opportunities to learn about how our government works. All 8th grade students in the Isaac School District have an opportunity to apply for this great opportunity. Students are working currently as we speak to write essays, and the essays are due next week, next Friday, and students will be selected We're working closely with the middle school teachers from each of the middle schools to organize our efforts and to select the 15 students. They will be participating in the event as well. 2 of our social studies teachers will be attending the event with them as chaperones. Here's the timeline. We will send our final selection of the 15 students to Close Up on April 19th. During this process, parents are also being notified, and with the submitting the essay, parents also have seen the video and received a permission slip. And then June 22nd is the departure for the trip to Washington, D.C.
Wow.
Are there any questions?
Thank you. Is there any questions from the board? Well,
Just
keep,
just a comment, Madam President.
go ahead.
You know, I think this is an exciting opportunity because I really think the more our students start to understand how our processes work, the more they're going to have influence here in our community, especially the composition of our community. I think there's a lot of, I'm not going to say a lot of misinformation, but there's a lot of lack of information on how our processes work and how we can have an effective change in all of our policies and the way that, you know, our community is treated. And for our young people to be able to go and see how that works, how, you know, policy is established, I'm very excited by it. And I'm grateful to the governor for doing this, you know, which really talks about the community engagement, understanding, you know, how they'll be able to work through all this. So Dr. Ventura, we haven't sent a letter of appreciation to the governor. I would suggest that we do that, just for this opportunity for our kids.
Thank you. Just keep us posted who's the 15 students.
We will.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have approval of rescheduling the May 12 regular governing board meeting to Monday, May 9th at 5 p.m., followed by the governing board retreat. Dr. Maria Ventura, Superintendent, is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Dr. Ventura?
Madam President, as you mentioned, we are asking that we reschedule the May 12th regularly scheduled governing board meeting to Monday, May 9th at 5 o'clock, and then following that meeting, we would have a retreat with the governing board.
Okay, any questions from the board? Okay, hearing none, call for the vote. Okay, motion carries. Next, we have approval to accept the FY 2021 Annual Comprehensive Financial and Compliance Audit Report. Ms. Ling Lang, Chief Financial Officer, is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Ling?
Good evening, Madam President, members of the governing board, Dr. Ventura, and Isaac community. This evening, I'll be presenting the fiscal year 2020-2021 financial and compliance audit. In this presentation, we'll be talking about the Arizona Revised Statute and the changes that are in effect for this audit, the process that we go through to complete the audit. We'll review the 3 reports that we receive, the annual comprehensive financial report, our single audit reporting package, and the Uniform System of Financial Records Compliance Questionnaire. We'll talk about what the next steps are, and then I'll answer any questions that you may have. So what Arizona Revised Statute 15914 requires a financial and compliance audits by all school districts. So if we look at the law itself, Section A says that the governing boards of a school district is required to comply with the Single Audit Act amendments of 1996. This all has to do with the federal law and requiring that we have at least an annual financial and compliance audit of the financial transactions and accounts that are subject to the Single Audit Act. It all happens because the state receives federal funding for our education system. So we must follow the federal laws requiring audits. The next one that's applicable to us is letter D, and that says that the Department of Education shall make the audit reports available on the department's website. So after this evening, after the board accepts the audits, I will upload them to the Department of Education. And then finally, the last piece that is new this year is that a school district governing board or charter school governing board shall publicly accept all audits and compliance questionnaires by roll call vote. So what is the process that we go through for our annual audit? Well, it's required to be done by an independent audit firm. So our procurement puts out a request for proposal, and we use both price and reputation as the most important factors. Again, we choose an auditor for a 5-year period, renewable each year. So if after the first year we feel that the audit firm isn't being independent or that they are misrepresenting us, we have the opportunity, we can always go back and do another RFP and maybe select a different audit firm. It starts out with a team of 3 to 5 auditors who come to our district to review our records. They usually come twice a year, and each time they're here for about 4 days. The first visit that they come and do focuses on the compliance with the Uniform System of Financial Records. The Uniform System of Financial Records is it's, lack of a better way to put it, it's the Bible for the business office in a school district. It's how we keep track of all of our funds, all of the procedures we're supposed to follow. And so they come and make sure that we're in compliance with that. And sometimes they come in late spring, or they can come in early in the fall. And then for the financial portion of our audit, they come for a second visit, again, for another 3 or 4 days. And this is in late fall. So this is after the year's over, and then we have 2 months of paying off our bills. We do the annual financial report that I present to the board, and then they come back and they audit our financials. But all of our audit reports must be complete and filed with the appropriate agencies by March 31st of each year. Appropriate agencies include the Department of Education, include the Federal Audit Clearinghouse, so we have to send them to the federal government, and then also we have to send them to the Auditor General, all 3 places. Who is involved in the audit? Well, on the financial side, it's primarily the business office with help from our friends over in the federal grants and programs area, because they also audit all of the financials for our grants. On the compliance side is a much broader audience. This includes the business office and federal programs again, but it also includes our human resources. Did everybody file the right paperwork? Do we get all of the tax information for everybody right? It involves technology, whether that's security in our technology system or our keeping track of our students and our ADM and keeping track of the number of days and students and all of that. Our transportation department gets involved because we have to keep track of route miles. Did we file everything right with the Department of Ed? And then student services, where we track primarily our special ed students. Do we have all of their documentation in line? And they check all of these things are part of the compliance audit, and all of that compliance is part of the USFR. So what reports do we receive for the financial and compliance audit reports? The first one is the annual comprehensive financial report, and that's this right here. Then we receive a single audit reporting package, which is this little thing here, and the Uniform System of Compliance questionnaire. So we receive a lot of information. So we'll talk about each one individually. So first, the annual comprehensive financial report. It's approximately 155 pages long. It has 3 separate sections. The first part is the introductory section. It just talks about the district in general, right? General information, overview of the district, how many students do we have, how many schools do we have, what is our organizational chart, who are our governing board members. They include our prior year awards and any comments made by the awardees. And then there's the financial section, which is our district's financial statements. Okay, there are basic financial statements in here. They take government funds that belong together with outside of the federal programs, outside of specific funds we have to track by the state requirement. There's a report from the auditor, and then there's a letter or basically a response from Dr. Ventura and I to our financial statements. And finally, the last piece Did I do that? Did I hit a button with my? Thank you. And then finally is the statistics, and it talks about financial trends, our demographic, economic area with, for our district, and then operating information. How many people do we have, and things like that. How many students do we have? So I pulled out some rather important information on the government-wide financial analysis. This is a comparison of revenues, and this is comparing where we were in June 30th of 2020 to where we were at June 30th of 2021. And if you look at our revenues from June 30th of 2020, we were at $65,242,000. Our revenues for 2021 were $69,553,000. Why the big uptick? And those would be our ESSER funds that we receive from the federal government, plus any other grants that my friend Mr. Harris here secured for us. If we look at our expenses, again, government-wide. So this includes all of our grants, this includes M&O, this includes our capital, this is pretty much everything. Where are we at for expenses? Our expenses went from $65,788,000. They reduced by about $200,000 down to $65,526,000. And where some very important things I want to point out as far as where the changes were. Operation of non-instructional services in 2020, and those would be primarily our food service department. So in 2020, they were at 5.4 million, almost 5.5, and in 2021, they were at 4.9. Reduction in students, we weren't in school for 3/4 of the year, that's what would have had an effect there. Our student transportation services, look what happened, 1.9 million in 2020, only 1.1 in 2021. Again, why? Our students were at home. We didn't transport students. So our expenses went down there, right? Operation and maintenance of our plant stayed pretty flat, right? Which is what we want. We want it to stay the same. We still need to maintain our buildings, still need to maintain our schools, right? Support services for administration went down just a little bit, right? But look at what happened to our support services for our students and staff and what happened to instruction. Our support for our students and staff went up by almost $600,000. And our money we spent in the classroom or for our instruction, again, went up by almost $700,000. So last year, even though we didn't have our students on campus, we still did our best to support them through instruction and through additional support services. And that, to me, that's a very, very important piece of this picture. Thanks to ESSER, when we get down to the bottom here, we ended June 30th, 2020 at a negative $895,000. We ended 2021 at a positive $3.1 million. Here are the expenses in a pie. This is similar to what the Auditor General would produce for us on our dollars in the classroom. All of the percentages are pretty much the same as what they have been over the years, about 52% in instruction. That number won't change until they take that 7% of non-instructional expenses, that food service out of there, because none of that money can be spent in the classroom. So it really kind of skews the whole picture. Support services for students and staff, that one increased quite a bit from where our dollars in the classroom had been before. But overall, this is just saying what the other, the page right before said, only in a picture form. The next report that we get is our single audit reporting package. And that's this one here. Again, you have a digital copy in the agenda for the board members. And so what happened, what is this? And this is all what, on this page is, I'm not gonna read the whole thing to you. This is what the requirements say within the law. But really what they're doing is they're saying, the auditors are saying, based on our financial statements, right? Was it a fair presentation of our financials? And did our internal controls and compliance, did we meet our legal requirements? Specifically looking at our federal funds, right? So they're going to look at, do our financials look good, and are we in compliance with our federal funds? And within there, they found 2 exceptions, or what they call findings, is what the auditor would call them. So related to our financial statements, they said that we needed to increase our internal controls over our capital asset reporting. This is something we are aware of. Part of as our corrective action, we have purchased new software. The new software we purchased speaks directly to our financial software. So the assets will directly flow into our financial software, and the district, thank you to the warehouse men, are completing a physical inventory of every single asset in the district. And that is not only the asset level, but at the stewardship level. So anything basically over $100 is being counted and tagged and put into the system. So by the end of this year, we will have a complete picture of what our capital assets are. So that one will go away. Related to our federal awards, and this says what they call, and this is the way they have to write it, is allowable costs and cost principles. And really what this was is a miscalculation of the indirect cost amount for the food service fund. Every year we can charge the food service fund an indirect cost amount, basically what it costs the district to produce their payroll, to work in the warehouse people, to do their hiring and firing in HR, all of those things. And so we miscalculated what our indirect cost amount was. We've made the correction. This was a learning experience for both myself and Ms. Soto, our financial services manager. We did it the same way we've always done it, and the auditors brought to our attention that we've been doing it incorrectly all this time. So it has been corrected. We didn't lose any funds. We just moved them back into the food service fund. But this one has already been taken care of. And finally, my favorite audit report. This is the Uniform System of Financial Records Compliance Questionnaire. And like I said before, the Uniform System of Financial Records is our Bible. It's how we have to keep track of everything. It's about this thick in a binder. Thank goodness now it's all digital. And this is created by the State Auditor General. And what it's used for is to determine if we're in compliance with the requirements of how we have to track things. The questionnaire has 18 sections. It has 175 yes or no questions, so it's a yes or no answer. And then based on the number of questions with a no, the Auditor General determines if the district is in compliance, is in marginal compliance, or is out of compliance. And if you're out of compliance, they will send you a letter and say, you have 90 days to get your act together. And they will come back and check you after 90 days. When I arrived at the district 14 years ago, we were out of compliance and had a 90-day letter. And with a lot of work, we were able to get ourselves out of it. Since then, we have not had any problems with our compliance. Here are the 18 categories. How many we had no, how many total questions in each area? Just a couple to point out. If you look at the property control, this is our assets. We had 4 no's out of 8. To be expected, that's where we had a finding, right? We already know and are focusing on what we have to do there. But as you notice, we don't have many. We don't have very many at all. So if we look at it as far as areas where we need to concentrate, obviously the property control, right? We're doing the physical inventory, we're doing our asset software. That one should be taken care of for next year. Under financial reporting, yes, we had some of those that came out as no's. However, they did not have to do with our finances. It had to do with our timeliness and our records. So under financial reporting, I believe the AFR got filed a day late, so it was a no. There's no gray. It's either black or white, yes or no. And then we needed to have documentation for the backup of one of our reports. We were not able to produce that documentation, So we've created now a common file for maintaining all of our documentation for the reports we have to send into ADE. And then under information technology, has to do with providing employee training on security with passwords, and then some contingency planning. So these are things that we really need to look at and where we're at now for this school year to make sure that these don't come up as no's again. However, more importantly, we had some real serious areas of success. Cash and revenue. The cash and revenue area has 30 different questions, and we had 0 of them that were a no. That means we're watching our funds, we're making sure everything gets deposited in the right place, and everything's done on time. And this I need to credit to Ms. Araceli Soto, our financial services manager, and Ms. Nancy Santos. They do an awesome job of making sure everything gets deposited in a timely manner. Under procurement, again, I believe there's 26 questions in procurement. We had 0 no's. And that's a pretty big step considering the 2 people we have in procurement and purchasing, yet last year was their first year doing their job. And that's Mr. Frank Sanchez and Ms. Sandra Ponte. 0 no's. They had all of their ducks in a row when the auditors came looking for their information. And finally, payroll. Payroll was 100% compliance. That means everybody got paid right, everybody's taxes were right, everybody's retirement came out right. And I believe since I've been here, or since with the 2 payroll people we have right now, Ms. Erica Alonso and Ms. Olivia Castellon, we have never had a finding in payroll. We have the absolute top-notch payroll people. So those are huge. We bought things the right way, we deposited all our money, we had good controls over our cash, and we made sure everybody got paid correctly. So what happens next? There'll be a roll call vote to have you accept the audit reports. I will upload them to ADE website, and then we'll put a link on our website to the audit reports at ADE. So if anybody wants to see them, they'll be there for their looking. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that I possibly can.
Does the board have any questions?
Madam President?
Mr. Guerra?
Yes, I do have several questions, and I mentioned to Ms. Lang before the meeting started that, and I gave her the listing of the pages. So first of all, Ms. Lang, thank you for the report. You know, when we got these reports yesterday evening, you know, I didn't have enough time to really go through them in depth. However, you know, I was confident because of the reporting that you've done out on a pretty consistent basis, you know, the financials were going to be fine, and we already knew what happened in 2020, 21. So this is really just a redundant of, you know, what we already had known, right? So I went right to, you know, a place that I love to go to. I sat on 4 different committees for audit and finance. So my favorite places to go, and I won't go into the single audit report package because you already spoke about those. But on page 9, if anybody's interested, you can go to the summary of auditors' results, and it has the recommendations. It also has your corrective actions in there. So thank you for having that in the PowerPoint. So I can limit my questions to the annual comprehensive financial report. By the way, I did not go through all 155 pages, although it was intriguing. Like I said, a lot of that was redundancy in there, so I went right to where I like to go to, and that's to the notes. So on page 57, note number 8, short-term debt. Ms. Lang, when we talk about, well, first of all, the Treasury, right? They're talking about negative cash balance. So my question is, what contributes to the district's negative cash balance?
Madam President, Mr. Galwell, the negative cash balance that we have with the county treasurer in our general fund is related to our tax rate being frozen for a number of years. It relates back to when we had the economic downturn, even back to, say, 2008, 2010, where we used cash balance that we had to maintain, to keep our tax rate down, and not being, and then as our tax rate went up, it being frozen and not being able to collect enough money to cover what our budget limit is. And so, as of right now, we are doing our best to try to mitigate that. However, there is not a straight path from here to there to get rid of that negative, which then brings us down to note number 8 with the short-term debt and why we have to go to the TANs in order to cover that as the years go by. That number has come down up by approximately 2.5 million over the last 2.5 years, and we are slowly whittling away at it. But as long as they continue to freeze our tax rate, it makes it very difficult for us to really get rid of that negative.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for addressing Note 8, because I was just going to comment, I was very glad that we were able to pay off that through our property tax revenues, right? And so that we were able to get our commitment out of the way, because last year, about this time, we had to go out to ask for those tax assumption notes in order for us to carry forward. So I just wanted to mention that we have fulfilled that obligation
Yes.
For this year. So on that, also on that same note, on revolving lines of credit, and one thing I saw the breakdown here as far as, you know, what are the ones that we're using for, but what type of timing differences of expenditures require the district to use that line of credit? In other words, you know, what are the things that cause us to have to go out and do a short-term revolving credit loan?
Mr. Garrell, before we started issuing our tax anticipation notes, we used the line of credit. Right. And the line of credit and that's partly because of the fact that we receive a payment. We don't receive a payment in July from the state. And so it kind of puts us a month behind. And so in order to make sure that we have cash to cover payroll going through, we were using the line of credit. In the last 2 years, we've used the tax anticipation notes, which have a much lower interest rate. And so although we have the line of credit issued here, on here, we have not used the line of credit for 2 years. And so that's why we have the tax anticipation notes, showing that they were issued and redeemed within the same year. But before we had to use it because of not getting the payments. Mostly in July is really what kind of sets us off. And then current year funding. You know, you can't always anticipate what next month's payment's going to be depending upon the number of students you have.
Well, and I think that brings up a really good point, because one of the things that, and I mentioned this earlier just because I knew we were going to have this conversation today about the lawsuit that came out for the funding, because what you just described is what the government does. They float the money. They keep it in the bank for 30 to 60 to 90 days and draw the interest before they pay it out. And subsequently, we end up having to pay the interest on it just so that we can keep up with it's not anything that the district has any or control over. It's really the fact that you're floating money by the federal government, the local government, in order to be able to keep their coffers full. And so we pay the price for that piece. So I wanted to bring that out very clear in the public setting, because a lot of times our community doesn't understand when they see things like, you know, why do we have to go out and get a loan? Why do we have to go out and do, you know, taxes and what have you, right? And part of that is because of what we've been fighting with the legislature in the state for years, and that's full funding, so that we wouldn't have to go out and find these alternative ways to keep ourselves in a position where we can continue to provide the services to our children. Okay, so thank you for that.
Yes.
The other note, note 11, and this one I think is, I pretty much got the answer to it. It was about the interfund, how we use the interfunds annually to help us out, but again, it's because we're floating, you know,
Correct.
the monies, or the state is floating the monies. Then the last one I found was on page 129, and it talked about, and this is the 10-year snapshot of our fiscal years. And to me, that's always interesting, because I know at the current, I always like to know what's happened in the past, so we can try to anticipate what's going to happen in the future. The only question I had on here was, beginning in 2014-15, we saw a significant reduction in our fiscal, right, because of a thing called GASB number 68. Could you explain to me what that means?
I will.
Oh, I'm sorry, before you do that, because we literally went from $72 million down to about $7 million.
Yes.
So for me, it was, you know, how do we drop $65 million in 1 year?
Yes, and I will do my best to explain GASB 68, not being a CPA. I will put it in the best terms I can. GASB 68 went into effect in 2015, and this is where If you look back at the note section we were just referring to, where we had to list a liability for our pension. And that's what created our unrestricted amount to go from 1 million up to 63 million. And it's that liability for pension, which in essence really isn't a liability for us because we've already paid state retirement. It's kind of been in holding at state retirement to pay it out to our people. But because they're tied to the district, we have to list it on our financials. And so that's what, and I wish I could tell you what GASB stands for, but it has to do with generally accepted, do you know? It has a standards, something with the accounting standards.
Right.
Oh, yeah. And so this is number 68 that they put out, and this is when it went into effect. So really, our net position didn't really change that much. We just have to list it on paper that way.
And I appreciate that, and part of the reason I want to bring these up is because, you know, when we have these conversations with, you know, our elected officials and they're talking about, you know, our funding formulas and what have you, there's a lot that happens, whether it was, you know, intentionally or unintentionally done, that's impacting the funding for public schools right now. And I think it's always important for us to put it out into the public domain, to put it on a public record that, you know, we have as much control as we can in the district, but there are things that are out of our control. And if we can allow our community to understand that and better learn how this works, going back to the trip to DC, I hope our students start to learn a little bit about this, because that's the point about policy and understanding how these work. Financial spreadsheets, I love doing those, you know, but again, for a layperson, I always suggest that they go to the notes, they always go to the findings, and it really tells you kind of in a executive summary of what all of that means. You know, so if you're not familiar with spreadsheets, this is a really good way to get a better handle on what's going on. You know, so thank you for your indulgence, thank you for your responses, and Madam President, that ends my questions.
Thank you. I don't have any questions, but I just want to thank you for always, what's the word that I want to use? Just for always, you know, all the awards and everything. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you to everybody pretty much, and, you know, to you as well. I mean, for doing a great job. One thing that I did notice that shocked me, on your MDAC, in that report, our oldest facilities from 1950. So I know we don't have capital money, and that's something that Dr. Ventura and I talked about, and that's something that I strongly believe in rebuilding our schools, and our schools are old. So I know capital money right now, you know, unless we have a bond election, but that's something that I really want to look into, is fixing our schools. I have always said our students deserve the best. So we'll talk about that later, but thank you very much for your work.
You're welcome.
Okay, next we have,
Madam
call
President.
for the vote. Call for the vote.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Madam President and governing board members, at this point, I will be taking your roll call vote to publicly accept all audits and compliance reports. Madam President, Ms. Patricia Jimenez, may I please have your roll vote?
Aye.
Governing board member, Ms. Maria Guzman, may I please have your roll vote?
Aye.
Governing board member, Mr. Rudy Santa Cruz, may I please have your verbal vote?
Aye.
Governing board member, Mr. Harry Garwell, may I please have your verbal vote?
Aye.
Governing board member, Ms. Maria Hernandez, may I please have your verbal vote?
Aye. Okay, thank you. Well, motion carries. Next, we have approval of Local Incentive Support Corporation, LISC, grant awarded to Isaac School District Number 5, Dr. Erica Avila, Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning, and Mr. Aaron Harris, Director of Federal Programs. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Okay, Mr. Harris, I believe, is going to.
Madam President, this evening, Mr. Aaron Harris, Director of Federal Grants, grants and federal programs, will be presenting the Funds to Feed Grant Award that the Isaac School District has received. Mr. Harris?
Thank you, Dr. Avila. Good evening, Madam President, members of the Governing Board, Dr. Ventura, members of the Isaac community. This evening, I will be presenting to you the Funds to Feed grant that the Isaac School District has received for the 2021-2022 school year. This aligns with our strategic plan, Goal 3, strong relationships through effective communication and excellent customer service. Objective E, growing the Heart of Isaac Community Center programming. Strategy 3, developing strategies to foster family, staff involvement, and volunteerism. And last, Action 1, engaging families, staff, and service providers in co-creating and delivering community center programming. So the Funds to Feed grant was offered through LISC Phoenix, and the question will be, what is LISC? LISC is the Local Initiative Support Corporation. They are a nonprofit in Phoenix that works with school districts, nonprofits to fund initiatives and activities that may arise. So this grant had come about during COVID, during school closures. I actually wrote this grant with former Human Resource Director, Mr. Howard Paley, but we were not selected because there were so many school districts and nonprofits that were applying for grant funding. So after those initial awards were given and funding was either denied or there was deemed to be an overage, Isaac was contacted and was asked if we wanted to reapply for funding. So we did. We asked for $100,000 in funds to work to strengthen our food delivery system, as you can see in the next slide. So now we will take those grant funds and we will purchase gift cards for the Farm Express mobile service, and we will also work to provide fresh fruit. Ms. Barraza had also partnered on this grant for some community initiatives during school closures. So we will, again, have funds to feed our community. And so LISC started in 1992, and I just wanted to give you the background because I was not familiar with LISC prior to this grant. And so as you can see, they work to fund school districts, place-based organizations, and public partners who are facing systemic challenges. And so this award was given to us through CARES Act funding. And again, we will work to put the gift cards in the hands of our families. We will work with Ms. Susana Lopez, our family community coordinator, as well as our parent educators at each site. And so families will be identified, and we will inform families of the mobile Farm Express distribution. They provide a calendar, really it's a weekly, daily calendar where they go out through the community and they're staged, and families will be able to go and purchase healthy food products. So again, this is a $100,000 grant. We will spend district funds, and then we will submit for reimbursements. And so again, thank you, Ms. Lane, for the accounting and setting this account up in the district. Again, this is a one-time $100,000 grant that we must use by the end of the fiscal year, or else the funds will be returned back to LISC Phoenix. Are there any questions regarding this grant that you may have, comments?
Amazing. Thank you. Does the board have any questions?
Just a question.
Yes.
Mr. Harris, so when you say the end of this fiscal year, that's June 30th?
Yes, that is June 30th.
Man, you're going to have to get busy getting
Yes,
these
we
things
will.
out.
Yes, we will. Again, Ms. Barraza has already identified families through a previous community event that she had, and Ms. Susana Lopez and the Heart of Isaac.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Call for the vote. Okay, motion carries. Next, approval of the AC On-Track Award for the American Rescue Plan Act. Dr. Erica Avila, Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning, and Mr. Aaron Harris, Director of Federal Grants. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Harris and Mr. Avila?
Madam President, members of the Governing Board and Isaac community, Mr. Harris will be presenting another grant that was awarded to the Isaac School District on Arizona On Track Summer Camp. Mr. Harris?
Thank you, Dr. Avila. Madam President, members of the Governing Board, Dr. Ventura. So the AZ On Track Summer Camp came about during the Governor's State of the State address back in January. So $100 million in ARP, the American Rescue Funds, were allocated to local school districts and nonprofits so that we can fund our summer activities to keep our students engaged over the summer. So the Isaac School District, we applied to have summer camps at all 10 of our sites, and we submitted a grant application, and I will explain the funding that we received in the next slide, but all of our summer camps were approved, and so now the application is in the Governor's Strategic Plan office for final approval. I was in contact today, and the application for grant funds is moving forward. Do not anticipate any roadblocks for funding. So this grant, this one aligns with Goal 1, the strategic plan, exceptional teaching and learning for all students. Objective A, closing the achievement gap. Strategy I, providing high quality, rigorous, and relevant Tier 1 instruction. Then Action 4, monitoring the classroom instruction to measure instructional delivery and curriculum alignment. So again, the purpose of the AZ On Track grant was through the Governor's office, and it was designed to create summer learning camps throughout the state of Arizona. And we're very excited because the Isaac School District will be promoted in the governor's, on the governor's website for families who are looking for services for their children throughout the summer. So it's open, our summer camps will be open to all Arizona students, so not just Isaac students. So this is a great way for us to recruit and potentially retain students that will apply and are accepted to our camps. And so I don't have the numbers. We had a summer school meeting just before the governing board meeting, and we have several students that have applied that live out of the Isaac School District that will be attending our summer camps. So the On Track grant will align with our extended learning summer program that we will have here in Isaac. And as you can see to the right, we've received so far $1.4 million to fund 10 extended learning camps. And so again, this funding is good for summer. It will extend into July, but we're going to use funding to fund our Session 1 program, our in-person summer learning program, our 4-week program. And so we will receive the $1.4 million at different intervals. So the first interval, we will receive 50% once our application, contract has been signed and executed. And then they will look at our second day enrollment attendance for the summer camp when it is actually in session, and will fund the remaining dollars at that time. So again, it's a 50-50 award, but we have received $1.4 million. Again, we're very excited because Dr. Avila had been keeping up with the publications, and she had announced to me, I didn't know this, but we were the only traditional public school district in the state that received awards for every school in the school district. And so there are a lot of single schools out there, but the Isaac School District is the only one that has received awards for all 10 schools. And so again, this funding will allow us to continue the services that we provide through our extended learning program, our ILC. And so that way students will not have any interruptions with summer learning. Again, we've had our summer school meeting prior to the governing board meeting, and all of our schools are at different places, but they are planning to offer robust services and support, mainly enrichment. And so our grant will consist of nearly $1 million for vendor services and support for enrichment, and then the remaining will come in the form of teacher salaries. So at the end, our summer school camps will not cost us, and now we can utilize funding in other areas. And so again, thank you, Ms. Lang, for offering the support during the school year through the ESSER fund so that we can offer these extended enrichment opportunities. And now we can continue and we can utilize funds in other areas as we go throughout the school year.
Wow.
So this ends my presentation on the AZ On Track Summer Camp Grant information. Are there any questions, Madam President?
Thank you.
Members of the Governing Board.
Does the board have any questions? I just have a comment. Wow and wow. Are we going to promote this on Facebook? We sure are, correct? That's amazing. It's amazing because a lot of our families, you know, they struggle where the kid's going to go. And I know, you know, summer is around the corner, and I know that we are preparing for that. So great work.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, call for the vote.
Madam President.
Yes. Yes, Ms. Guzman?
So we somehow joined the meeting here and we can't get to vote.
Okay, Nancy will just give her your verbal vote.
Governing Board Clerk, Ms. Maria Guzman, may I please take your verbal vote?
Aye.
What about you, Mr. Santa Cruz? He's good? Okay. Motion carries. Thank you. Ms. Guzman, let me know if you still have issues, okay?
Okay, we're signing in again, so hopefully it works.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have ratification of purchase orders for adding flooring to Alta E. Butler School and PTCO Elementary School. Ms. Ling, Chief Financial Officer, is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Ling?
Madam President, members of the Governing Board, this evening we're asking for the board to ratify the purchase orders we issued to put new flooring into the classrooms at Butler, Sutton, and PTCO. The purchase orders total $584,000. It is part of our ESSER plan that we presented it earlier for classroom and building improvements. Normally, we would bring this to you prior to issuing the purchase orders. However, we were noted by the vendor that there would be a sharp increase as of April 1 in price, and we wanted to make sure we got the purchase orders out there before the increase in price.
Okay, any questions from the board? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Governing Board Clerk, Ms. Maria Guzman, may I please take your verbal vote?
I think she said she was good.
Aye, but I'm okay now.
Okay, motion carries. Next, we have recommendation to award the 2021 RFP 009 after-school enrichment services to multiple vendors listed, Ms. Ling Lang, Chief Financial Officer, and Mr. Aaron Harris, Director of Federal Grant Programs. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Lang and Mr. Harris?
Madam President, members of the Governing Board, the Procurement Office issued RFP number 009 for after-school enrichment services. This is an addendum, or in addition to, the RFP that was issued back in December. This time we're asking for approval for 14 vendors. This, again, goes with our ESSER plan for learning opportunities and innovation. These vendors are going to be used for our ILC, which is our before and after school program, and for our summer school. Originally, we approved 17 vendors, and even those vendors were not able to keep up with the numbers of students that we have in our before and after school program. and also with summer school. And so we needed to go out for additional vendors to be able to support our students.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, call for the vote. Okay, motion carries. Next, approve of governing board member Patricia Jimenez, Rudy Santa Cruz, Harry Guerrero, Maria Guzman, Maria Hernandez, out-of-state travel request for 2022-2023 school year. Dr. Mario Ventura, is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Dr. Ventura?
Madam President, members of the governing board, before you this evening, we have the conference events for the upcoming school year, and the reason we're bringing it to you so early is because we're trying to save monies. Usually, these conferences provide an early bird registration, and by approving them now, it will allow us to secure better rates for your hotel and travel as well. So we bring before you these conference events that you can plan for to attend if you so choose.
Okay, any questions from the board? Hearing none, call for the vote. Okay, motion carries. Next, approval of Superintendent Dr. Mario Ventura out-of-state travel request for 2022 and 2023 school year. Dr. Mario Ventura, Superintendent, is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Dr. Ventura?
Madam President and members of the governing board, for the same reason I mentioned earlier, is in our efforts to lower our expenses for out-of-state travel and attending conferences. If approving the travel for next year now allows us to get the lower early bird registration rate, which is lower, and also make the accommodations for hotel and travel at a lower rate.
Okay, call for the vote. Motion carries. Next, to have a motion to approve the whole consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, call for the vote. Okay, motion carries. Next, we have call to the public, and we do have call to the public.
Madam President and members of the governing board, at this moment, we have two public requests to speak to address the governing board. Due to the pandemic, anyone who wanted to address the governing board had to submit the request to speak online. The public acknowledges that personal attacks upon governing board members, staff personnel, or other persons in attendance or absent by individuals who address the board are discouraged. Presenters are cautioned that statements or representations concerning others that convey an unjustly unfavorable impression may subject the presenter to civil action for defamation. Policies KE, KEB, KEC, and KED are provided by the board for disposition of legitimate complaints, including those involving individuals. Upon conclusion of the open call to the public, individual members of the board may respond to any criticism made by an individual who has addressed the board. Our first request to speak is from Doris Alarcon.
system. From a touch-tone
At this moment,
New to us, so I don't know how many times there are we gonna try again or try?
it's just
I-
once.
Just
We're good,
once,
yeah.
okay. Just
At
let 'em
this
know we called.
moment, we will call the second person, and that is Shannon Royal.
four eight zero.
Okay, like I said, this is something, first two call to the public that we have, so we called, there was no answer, so if Ms. Hernandez, Ms. Nancy, if you could let them know that we called them. Please, Dr. Ventura, give them a call. Thank you.
Madam President, if I might just recommend, because, you know, if they're watching on YouTube
YouTube.
or whatever, you know, they may have stepped away, so maybe we can give them a 5-minute call before to say that, you know, we're gonna be calling them, so that they can be prepared, because obviously, they don't know how long our meetings are gonna go, but it's at least a 5-minute call, you know, you'll be on call in 5 minutes or something, just so that we can give them a good opportunity to be prepared.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so next we have our calendar. So April 21st, a pays to be COVID-19 vaccine event at Joseph Cito School Elementary, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. April 23rd, a pays to be save a COVID-19 event at Morris K. Udall, 8 a.m. to 11:30. We have your enrollment at 5,407. And our next regular governing board meeting will be held here Thursday, April 28th. And if I don't hear any objections, meeting adjourned. Thank you.